Okay, good luck to everybody in all places. We're up to Yud Ches Amid Beis. Yud Ches Amid Beis, the two dots. Now we've been discussing a Nazir who contracted Tumah. We had two types of Nazirim. We had a Nazir who became a Nazir when he was Tameh. We said that he doesn't bring the Kabbanis of Tumah after the 7 days. We had a Nazir who's Tar, who becomes Tameh, who does bring those Kabbanis. And we discussed a halacha of when on the exactly how many kabbanis do you bring. We had a shita that we saw machlokas yesterday. The opinion of you're a nazar harbe, you only bring one carbon. So that's when we saw the opinion of Yosef Rabbi Yehuda and machlokas between him and Rabbi. Exactly when, like him, that was on the 7th day. It's possible to become tamei often on the 7th day, since the Tyra took place on the 7th day. The tumah that takes place can be absolved with one carbon on the, since on day 8, it's not the time of being the karbanis yet. So then you'll be able to take one, you wait your 7 days, and then you bring one carbon. Like Rabbi, however, since the day that you became tamei, you cannot bring karbanis. It'd be one naziris b'taira. It would not be consistently what? It would not be consistent tumah. So playing off of that, the Gemara says gufa nitma b'shvi v'chazim nitma b'shvi. Now, very interesting Taisus, because I had said this in Svara, but I found the Taisus that said it. I always told you guys, anytime we did gufa, means the Gemara previously brought something in as a question or a proof or something, but it was brought in agav. It wasn't brought in for the main thing. And gufa meant we're going to analyze it for itself. The word gufa means itself. So I thought it was a big chiddush. I finally found it's a Taisus here in Masech Nazir. You say, look at the Taisus. Isvarm the Garsi Bey, Gufa, Nitma Bishvi, Veloy Garsina. It says Taisus, you're not Garis Gufa. The Bekula Shas, Veloy Garsina Gufa, Ella, Kishashas Hevi Memra Oy Braisa Tchila. The Shas means a Memra or Braisa initially. Umaisi I saw Agav Grara. And it's brought in agav the sugya for a question or whatnot. Then we go back and go ahead, gufa, to explain the baisa or the memra for itself. Right. This baisa wasn't brought before at all. In other words, this baisa was never brought before, so you can't say the word gufa. Gufa is something that's brought previously. I can now self-analyze. This was never brought previously, but I just was very happy to find out what I thought all along is the Taisus here in Nazir. So now, Nitma B'Shvi, the Chazam Nitma B'Shvi, you became tummy on the 7th day, and now you're tummy on the 7th day. Eina maybe ela carbon echad. You're only going to bring one carbon, meaning when it's time to clear up your tumah, you're only going to bring one carbon. Let's go through the two shitas. Rabbi Yehuda. So I was tamei multiple times, but nonetheless, I'm only going to bring one carbon. Rabbi, it's one tumah arichta, but I'm only going to bring one carbon. In other words, you only bring one carbon in the end. The question is, how many tumas is this carbon going ahead and absolving, right? Loi Rebbe, it's one long tumah, because it wasn't until the 8th day that you bring the carbon. And Loi Rabbi Yosef Yehuda that you tar on the 7th day, it's for multiple, but it's only one. In other words, the statement is the Kuli Alma, both Rabbi Yosef Yehuda and the Shita of Rebbe. Nitma b'shmini v'chazav v'nitma b'shmini. What happens if you get tummy on the 8th day? Maybe carbon al kolecha v'yechad, according to everybody. Again, Rebbe says in the morning, fellas, you're right to bring a carbon. So if you came tummy after that, that's a new carbon, and so far. And the same thing with Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Huda. Now, umaschil umayna miyad divrei Rabbi Eliezer. Now, there's two distinct ways to learn. When do you start counting? Can I start counting before I bring the carbon? According to Rabbi, yes, but it's day 8. According to Rabbi Eliezer, guys, it's day 7. This is a chiddush nifla. In other words, I can start counting my naziris on day 7, similar to Rabbi Yosef of Yehuda, despite the fact that I'm not bringing my carbon yet. Now, there is if you notice over here, this aleph, this is the Vilna Gaon. He takes out the word Eliezer and he puts in the word Rebbe. And therefore, you're going to go ahead and say not day 7, you're going to say day 8. Again, huge nafkamino, who's talking over here? Like Rabbi Eliezer, who holds that on day 7, one is able to go ahead. 1 second. Like Rabbi Eliezer, that you can bring a carbon on day number 7, right? So you can on day number 8, you can that in the series starts on day number 7. So you tar on day number 7. Like Rabbi, you tar on day number 8. Good, on day number 8. Good. So in other words, it's the day that's matama. Rebbe's chiddush is that you tahar even before you bring the carbon. So like Rabbi Eliezer, it's day 7. Like Rabbi, it's day 8. The chachamim ma'imim carbon echad ala kol, right? You bring one carbon al sheyavi chatasai until you bring ad sheyavi chatasai. We know that he brings 3 karbanis. He brings an asham, he brings a chatas, and he brings an oila. The chatas and oila are birds. The asham is an ayal. It's the asham naziris, guys. The chachamim say you can't start cutting in naziris not when day 8 happens. You have to actually do an action. Which action goes ahead and starts the nazir back on his counting up again after his tumah? That's the bringing of the chatas. Good. Next, hevi chatasai v'nitma. Hevi chatasai v'nitma. Maybe carbon kolecha v'yacha. Then you bring a carbon each and every one. Hevi chatasai v'lehevi ashamai. If he brought his chatas and he didn't bring his asham, mina, then right, mina, so he could count. In other words, as long as even though you didn't bring your asham, as long as you brought your chatas, you can count. Just like his chatas stops him from counting, so too his the fact that the asham stops him from counting. So guys, we have 4 shitas outside, guys. 4 shitas. When does the nazir who's tamei start counting his naziris? Good. When does the nazir who's tamei begin counting his naziris? And again, obviously we're speaking about a nazir who had been tahar, because it was a nazir that was makabel his naziris betuma. There's no karbonis, right? There's no karbonis, guys. The nazir that's makabel, he's in the basic forest, right? There's no. He starts counting on the 7th day, right? Because there's no karbonis. Good now. So here we're speaking about a nazir who was tahar. He now contracts tuma. Says Rabbi Eliezer, the 7th day, as soon as he finishes, the 7th day, he finishes his process of getting spitz with the paraduma. That's the first day of his new naziris. He's only being karbanis to the next day. It doesn't make a difference. You start counting from that day. That's Rabbi Eliezer. Says Rebbe, no, you don't start counting from day 7. You start counting from day 8. You didn't bring any carbon yet. Says Rebbe, as long as you're roy to bring a carbon, you can start counting. Says the Chachamim, no. Day 8, but you have to bring the chatas. Day 8, but you have to bring the chatas. Says Rabbi Yishmael ben Oshel Reuch and Rocha, no. The chatas is not going to do the job. You need to bring the asham. It's the asham that's going to permit you. So 4 shitas. Rabbi Eliezer day 7. Rabbi period day 8, even without kavanis. Rabbi the Chachamim, the chatas, and Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shmuel ben Oshel Reuch and Rocha, the asham. That's going to be those are the 4 different shitas. Guys, good. So this is exactly when you can start counting your naziris. When exactly you can start counting your naziris. Back inside. Bishlem Rabbi Eliezer Amakra. Again, this would be Rebbe. Bishlem Rabbi Eliezer, but let's stay with the gears that we have. The rush. Bishlem Rabbi Eliezer Otaisus. Bishlem Rabbi Eliezer Amakra. The Kidesh Esroisai Biyoimahu. Right. He's mekadosh himself that day. Afa Pishle Hevi Kabanaisa. In other words, what does the pasuk say? The pasuk says, "V'asa hakoyin ech el chatas v'echad la'olah v'chiper olav me'ashachat ala nefesh v'kiddush esroishay b'yamahu." On that day, and we saw the chiddush that day, guys, is extra. So Rabbi Yehuda said that day is extra to teach me the day of his tiglachas, the day of his haircut, which was day 7. So therefore, that's the Shitas Rebbe Eliezer by Yomahu. That day, going back to day 7, that's the day we start counting. Afa Pishlei V'Kibernaisa, even though they bring the Kabbanas. For Rabbanon, what did Rabbanon do with that Hahu? Hahu Afa Pishlei Hevi Ashamai. The Rabbanon who say the Chatos, Tahu means that day, even though he didn't bring his Asham, but he brought his Chatos, then he starts counting. And El Rabbi Shmuel Hahu Lamali, Lloyd Rabbi Shmuel, that until you bring the Asham, what's it coming to exclude? What could action you have possibly done that you might need a pasuk to tell me, even though I didn't do it, I can start counting, right? In other words, Chatas, not an Asham. Ashamat. What else could you possibly do that I would go ahead and start counting? And the answer is, guys, the oila. The oila. We said there's three animals. No, actually, two birds and one animal. So the oila sa'if, that you would think that what? Until you bring all three karbanis, the nazir can't count. Kemash malan, as long as he brought his chatas asham, then what? You always bring the chatas first, guys, because it's better the carbon of a person who got his kapara than the person who didn't. And you have a chatas always comes first. Okay, so now it says El Rabbi Shmuel Ahu Lamali Amalachahu Afa Pishlei Hevi Alaisai. Even though he didn't bring the oila sa'if, nonetheless he can start counting. For Rabbanon, the Rabbanon, what about oila? Oila loy boy miyuta. I don't need a oila for a miyut because doirim ba'almahu. A carbon oil, an oil is the classic neder, guys. A person wants to go ahead and bring a carbon to Hakadosh Baruch Hu. He says neder nedava. He can bring two types. He can bring an oil or a shlamim. And the classic carbon, the carbon that's been around since the beginning of the time, is the carbon oil. A guy can only bring in a carbon oil. A guy cannot share a carbon with a Hakadosh Baruch Hu like we can when we eat a shlamim and the kohen eats the chaz of a shaykh. Right, the shlamim is called shlamim because it makes peace between three people, right? Hakadosh Baruch Hu, ourselves, Kaviyachol, and ourselves and the kahanim. But again, so that's a darim ba'alma. I don't need. In other words, there's no havamina that I need hahu to tell me that I can't start counting until I bring the oila. Since an oila by nature is a darim, is a gift, it's not a kapara, so it shouldn't be what an impediment to go ahead and stop me from start counting my naziris. Guys, so we have our four shitas and we have their opinions, right? Let's go through it again. Our four shitas. Rabbi Eliezer, according to the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yehuda, on day 7, by Yom Ahu, the day was Tiglachas, even though it can't bring carbon to day 8. We have Rabbi saying as soon as day 8 comes, right? We have the Chachamim saying that Yom Ahu, and that excluding the Asham, and we have Rabbi Yishmael ben Yochim Roka, excluding the Oila. That's it. My Tamayu Rabbana, the Tanya. What's the time of the Chachamim that you have to bring the Chatas? It says the pasuk says. The Hizal Hashem es Yemei Nizroi. The pasuk says, "The Hizal Hashem es Yemei Nizroi. The Hevi Keves Ben Shnasei LaHasham. By Yom Rishonim Yiplu, and the first days will fall away. Ki Tamei Nizroi." It says, "The Hizal Hashem es Yemei Nizroi. The Hevi Keves Ben Shnasei LaHasham. Ma Tamad Loimar." Why do you have to say this? Vishemetzinu shekol Hashem shebetayra shehem ma'akven. It says what in the Torah. Think about it. How many Hashemas could you name? I'm not testing you, but you say it every day, ostensibly. For example, a carbon, one of the least known is the Asham Shifra Charufa. If a person goes ahead and he's boiled a woman who's a Chatzi Baskoirin, and what he goes ahead and brings, she's engaged to a Evet Kanani, she's a Shifra Kananis, I think she's a Shifra Kananis, it's the Chatzi Shifra Kananis, then you Chayiv Malchus, you got to bring a carbon. No kapara till you bring that carbon. No kapara till you bring that carbon. Right? And Asham Gzelis, you swore falsely that you stole something. You did. You said, hey, this, that. You need that. It's ma'akiv. You don't bring it. So I might think Afal Zeh ma'akiv. Even though Asham of the Nazir, I'd say it's ma'akiv. Hamaloimar, it says, V'hizer v'hevi. What does that mean? Afa pi shelo hevi v'hizer. V'hizer v'hevi. Even though what? He didn't bring it yet. Hizer, he's still a Nazir. Even though he didn't bring it yet, he starts as Naziris. So you have a pasuk to tell me that only the Chatas is Ma'akiv, but the Asham is not Ma'akiv. Rabbi Shmuel ben Yochanan, who says the Asham is Ma'akiv, Vaymer, the Hizer v'Hevi, Amos Hizer, when he's a Nazir, Bisman Shehevi. When's he a Nazir? In the time when he brings it. When's he a Nazir? In the time that he brings it. That's when he's a Nazir. Man Tan L'Hod Rabbanan. Isha Shenadra bin Nazir. A woman who made a neder to become a Nazir, she became Tameh. Listen to this Lamda Shashayla. The Achkach Hefa Labaila. So what happened? She went ahead, guys. She became Naziris. She became Tameh, and she separated two birds and an ayil. She separated keves ben shnaf. So I keep on saying ayil. I think a nazir brings a keves, it's a year-old. I think a keves and a mitzvah, they bring a year-old, if I'm correct. I'm sorry, I've been saying ayil. Guys, look. She separated 3 kabbanis. But what's the deal? When the husband goes ahead and is made for the neder, right? If he's made for meikara, that it takes off the neder, these kabbanis are what? And unnecessary. The kabbanis are unnecessary. So what's the story over here? Says the Gemara. What does she bring? She brings the chatas oif, she doesn't bring the oilas oif, and she also doesn't bring the asham. She doesn't bring the asham, she doesn't bring the oilah. Now the Gemara doesn't understand this. They should all be one kit and caboodle, right? They should all be caboodled together. Rav Chisda, Rabbi Shmuel, it's Rabbi Shmuel, right? It's Rabbi Shmuel. It's Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yeshua Bracha. Now, what does the Gemara say? Mike Saba. What does the Gemara hold? Now, how do you know it's Rabbi Shmuel? Look at Taisvis. Rav Chisda, Rabbi Shmuel, the Marbel El Me'ahu, because he included from all, it says Vehezi Vehevi, Vehizer Vehevi. Afa Pishalei Hevi, Oylasai, even though he didn't bring his Oyla. Alma, Oylas Nazir, Lav Darinhu. So we see, according to him, the Oyla is not considered a Darin, because you needed a pasuk to go ahead and exclude it. The Kapara Tluyaba, and the Kapara is Tali in the Oyla. The Ikar Abanan, the Amri Le'el Oyla Darinhu, Amai Loi Hevi Oylas Oif. Why shouldn't you bring the Oylas Oif? Afapi the Hefel Labaila. Vein Nazira, Ein Kan Chulin, Chol Emas, Matzila Suye Maisi Darin. Levada Vishmalhi. Okay, guys, outside. Let me just tell you what I read. Look at me. Eye contact. Loite Chachamim, there never was a Havamina that the Oyla would stop you from counting your Naziris. Why is that? Why is no Havamina that the Oyla is going to stop me from counting my Naziris? Because in fact, the Oyla is a Dorin, it's a gift. It's not a kapara. What would stop me from counting my Naziris? If the korban I need to be mechaper. If the oil is a gift, it's not mechaper. And clearly they held an oil as a darin. Who is the only one who needed a pasuk to tell me that the oil, even though it's a kapara, is not ma'akiv? It's Rabbi Yishmael ben Oishel Rabbi Bereka. He said, chatas oila, hahu, even though you didn't bring a chatas asham, even though you didn't bring the oila. That's what he said. So Mimela, what are you telling me over here? You're telling me that the woman, the only korban that she can bring is the chatas, right? According to the Chachamim, she should be able to bring the oila too. Since the oila is a darain, it's an adava, it's a gift, you can bring it anyway. The fact that you can't bring the oila, it's because why? Because it must have an aspect of kapara. Who's the only Tana who held that the oila had an aspect of kapara? It was Rabbi Yishmael, because he's the only one who needed a pasuk to be mamayit it, right? The Chachamim just needed a pasuk to be mamayit the asham. Right, the chatas they said you can't start counting until you bring the chatas. So obviously, the held the darim was a gift. Rabbi Shmuel obviously when he needed a pasuk held it was a kapara. So therefore, when you tell me over here this woman cannot bring the oila, it must be because it's not a darim, and that's how you know it's Rabbi Yishmael. That's how you knew it was Rabbi Yishmael. So let's see the Gemara again. Now, I'm Rav Chisda Rabbi Shmuel. It's Rabbi Chisda Rabbi Shmuel as we just explained, because he's the only one who holds that the oila is not a kapara, is a kapara. My kasava, iksava bal make a okar. If you hold the bal as oika the nether totally, chatas oif namilay laisi. You shouldn't bring a chatas oif. Why you bring any carbon? All these would be chulun bazara. Iksava bal megas gayas. And if you hold the bal just cuts off, and meaning she really wasn't nazira. If you hold bal make a okar, she never was a nazira. If you hold megas gayas, he cuts off namat, then she was a nazira. So the manushach, either all should be included, or all should be excluded. Oif namilay. Loylam ksava bal make akar. He's akar. Rabbi Shmuel sava lok Rebbe Laza. He holds like Rebbe Laza. Hakaper. The Tanya Rebbe Laza kappa bribi oimer. Rebbe Laza kappa bribi, again famous Gemara we saw. Ma tamud loyma v'chiper love me'ashachata ala nefesh. What does it say by the Nazir? And it's mechaper ashachata. What chayte yidu? V'chiez nefesh chata zeh el shetzir atzim min hayayin. And it was Mitzay himself. Hakadosh Baruch Hu asked us enough self, and this person went ahead and asked him more things. The kavachomer. This person who was only mitzayim himself a mind is called a chayte. Hamitzar atzmei mikol dava anyone who's mitzvah himself from anything, halachas kama v'kama, right? But afraid the more v'hab benazir tamei. That pasuk said by nazir tamei. Anan afilu nazir tahar kaminon, and we're speaking afilu by nazir tahar. K'sav Rebbe Eliezer kaper nazir tahar nami chaytahu. Nazir is also right for hainu time the siv ben nazir tamei hayil v'shana b'chein. Okay. We spoke about earlier in the Masechta, fellas. If a nazir, Rabbi Shimon at Tzaddik never ate the carbon of a nazir tamei. We said why? Because he was always thought that maybe the nazir would go ahead and regret. He would have charata. Why would he have charata? Because the 30 days he could take, but 60 days the nazirus is extended. So therefore, since it's repeated by that, and it's more apt for him to be called, more apt for him to, he repeated the act by extending his tumah becoming tamei, so it says it over there. But the same svara applies initially to nazir. The nazir is wrong in being mitzvah themselves from wine. So how does that apply over here? Very geschmack. The Baal make a akar. So since he's akar, he doesn't bring what? He doesn't bring the oila. That's Rabbi Shmuel said that Baal is akar carbon. He doesn't bring the asham and he doesn't bring the oila. Why does he bring the chatas? Because be'emes, by making the neder, even if she didn't become tamei, she shayches to the chatas. Be'emes, guys, when she went ahead and made the neder initially, she had shayches to the chatas. What was the shayches? Hashem asks enough things in us that we don't have to ask more things in us. So mameli, you bring the chatas. Now, there's a special waiver by chatas oif. We spoke it in the Darim Daf Pei Gimel. I told you this, and you might remember. Let's say a woman gives birth, but you're not sure what she gave birth to. It's mesupik whether there was a lady or not. She gave birth in a pit. You're mesupik whether it was a child or was a bag of wind, and there was no child in there. So l'chayra, how could she bring a carbon? How could she bring a carbon yoledes? Maybe it's chulin bazara. So therefore, but since she has to eat the carbon Pesach and other kachim, right? Therefore, she has to bring a carbon in order to matter that. So what does she bring? She brings al suffix. She brings a chatas oif. She brings it, but the kohen doesn't eat it. That's the halacha. So we see there's a special waiver of a leniency by chatas oif that exists, and we're applying it according to the rush over here as well. Again, maker ocker, it's like mafreya. So now you're stuck with oilus oif, asham, they're gone. They're not nothing. But here you have a chatas oif. I got a waiver, another scenario to bring it. I will go ahead and bring it because the MS, there is a chatas, a chaytidik aspect to what? To every single nazir who was masam ayayin. Okay, so in conclusion, we have those four shittas. It's good to know. Again, we're getting to the little heavy-duty parts of Nazir, of this, machlokes. So when can a Nazir start as Naziris be made after his tamei? According to Rebbe Eliezer, who repeats the shita, Rabbi Yosef Yehuda, day 7. According to Rebbe, day 8 before he brings the carbon. According to Chachamim, only after day 8 on the chatas. And according to Rabbi Yishmael, day 8 after the asham. And he excludes the oila. His exclusion of the oila tells me that he views the oila as a kapara and not as a goyroin, as a gift, as opposed to the chachamim Rebbe. There's no chachamim. There never was a havamina that you need a miyah for it because an oila by nature is a gift. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Says the Gemara Vayta. Yotze v'nichnis oila loy min aminyan. What did we say? He was makabel tuma in the Beis HaKfaris, guys. He was makabel tuma in the Beis HaKfaris. It says oila min aminyan. He doesn't start the clock ticking. He's not a nazir. But it's mashma if he walks out and he walks in, the clock starts ticking. How could that help? If he walks out, he's still tamei, right? He didn't do anything for his tumah. Taich the words literally. He went out and he went back in, right? But if you remember, I said he went out, but what did he do? He went through the process of the paraduma. It says the Gemara, Yotzev nichlas oilu min aminyan, kitani oilu min aminyan, mishum the Yotzev achal of Naziris. Just because he left, is Naziris a schal, guys? But what did he do? How can the Naziris be chal if he just walked out? So Mashmuel keep going, Sheyotza, he went out, Vihiza, and he was spitz, Vishana, he was spitzed again on day 7, Vitaval, and therefore, in other words, in Achinami, that's why it starts counting. So the clock starts ticking on his Naziris. Ela nichnas hu the oilin, loy min aminyan. Loy nichnas ein oilin min aminyan, right? Mashma, it only starts counting when he went back in, but if he didn't go back in, it wouldn't start counting. It makes no sense, right? Guys, read it literally. He goes out, he's matar himself, and he goes back in and starts counting. Mashma that one, if he went out. if he went out, mashma, if he went out, it wouldn't go from the and stay out. It wouldn't be from the minyan. Says the Gemara, let me boy come out. Let me boy yotza elafilu nichnas oilam in a minyan. Even going out, it would go ahead and be what and count towards the minyan. I'm Rav Kana Ravasi Larav. My time lem fashla kalim mili. Why don't you explain this to me? I'm lahayin. I mean, dilma lights so I thought we don't need to. I thought it was self-understood. Says the Gemara right. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Okay, let's go back in time. Let's go back to the Mishnah on Yud Tes Zayin on the base, guys. The Mishnah on Tes Zayin on the base. We said he's a nuz in the base akfaris. Nothing counts until he goes out. He goes out. He's a now. Rabbi Eliezer Omer. It's mashma that day that he goes back in counts towards the naziris. So meaning Rabbi Eliezer Omer loy boy bayoyin. Not that day. Shenemar b'hayomim rishonim yiplu. You need yomim rishonim. In other words, you need at least 2 days. You need at least 2 days. If you have 1 day, then the days wouldn't fall away. If you have 1 day, that day would count. If you have 1 day, that day would count. That's the chiddush of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says 1 day the day would count. It wouldn't be uprooted. Only 2 days. Says the Gemara. Oma Ula, like Oma Rabbi Eliezer only said his din that the Yom Rishonim Yiplu, Ela b'tamei shenazer, by our Mishnah, a tamei who was common naziris in the state of Tumah. A guy was in the Beis HaKfaris. Avol bin Nazir, a regular Nazir, tahar, a regular Nazir that's tahar, shenitma, that became tamei, afilu yom echad seiser. Even 1 day it would be seiser. In other words, he'd be chayiv in his carbon tumah. Like Rebbe Eliezer, guys, you would not go ahead and be chayiv a carbon tumah if it's 1 day. Rabbi Eliezer's chiddush is when the Yomim Rishonim Yiplu and I have to go through the process. There were 2 days. If there's 1 day, I wouldn't have to I wouldn't have to bring a carbon tumah. Says the Reb Ula, that's only by a nazir that was tamei. That was only by a nazir that was makabel is zirus b'tayra that he needs 2 days. Light a nazir that was tahar even 1 day. Amar Rav, my time with Rebbe Eliezer, Amar Kra, it says a lot. Kitame nizroi. What does the pasuk say? V'hizer la'Hashem es yimei nizroi. V'hevi keres ben shenasoi la'asham. V'yomim rishonim yiplu. And the 4 days fall away. Kitame nizroi. Because he was tame when he met a nazir. Kitame nizroi mishum de betum nazir. Taisha literally, kitame nizroi. In a state of tumah, he became a nazir. Since he was in a state of tumah when he became a nazir, that's the nazir that yiplu rishonim that you need 2 days. Vayomim rishonim yiplu. The first days fall away. Esvei Abaya. Abaya's going to shlag a bula, guys. Esvei Abaya. Hareini nazir me'er yoyim. I'm a nazir for 100 days. Guy says I'm a nazir for 100 days. V'nitma betchilas meya. And the first day out, he's tummy. Yachli Seiser. I might think that day is gone. Tamid Laimar v'hayomim harishonim yiplu. At sheyilu yomim rishonim. You need 2 days to fall away, and you don't have 2 days. Now, the guys, obviously over here must be speaking that it was tahar. Guys, that's going to be the upshlag. Obviously, it's over here. It's speaking where he was tahar. Ein loy rishonim, right? And here you don't have rishonim. V'zeh ein loy rishonim. Nitma b'seif meya. Let's say on the last day, 100 days, Yachal Seiser. I might think it's Seiser. We saw it's Seiser 30 days. With the Rabbanan guys, we saw it because they were 30 days, but it's not Seiser a whole 100. That what the first days, there must be days afterwards, and so again, if he became Tommy on day 1, there wasn't Rishonim. If it became Tommy on day 100, there's no Achrayim. So those will not be Seiser. Those will not be Seiser in the series. On the first one, you'd only have to count 99 days. On the latter, he'd have to just keep 30 days afterwards because they were the Rabbanon. But it would be Seiser all 100, right? It would be Seiser all 100. Nitma biyoy meya chaser achas. Let's say day 99. Yachaloye Seiser. I might think it's not Seiser, right? Just like you tell me on day 100. Tamad Leimar vayomim harishonim yiplu. The mechlal deikach reinim. You have and here yeshloi, right? Rishonim b'achrayim. You counted 100 days. You had 99 days. You counted 98 days before, guys. You have one day after what? To the 100th. So it's Seiser. This fulfills both requirements. You had previous days and you had latter days. You had Rishonim, you had the 98 days before. You had 100, the days, that's the Achroinim. That fulfilled everything. Okay, what's the kasha? Again, he's coming to a kasha. Fred the Gemara. But the Brisa, you can't explain that it's speaking about a nazar that became tameh, a nazar that was mekabel b'tumah. Miditani hareini nazar meya yoim, v'nitma betchilas meya. It's mashma, guys, and when he was mekabel naziris, he was tahar, and then afterwards he became tameh. V'kitani at sheyu lo yom rishayim. So you see that this pasuk is applied to a nazar that's tahar. To Yufta, this is an upshtak on Ula. Outside, Ula said the whole din of 2 days, according to the din of 2 days, is only stated by a nazar that was makabel his naziris b'tumah. Says Abaya, Adarabba, it's only stated by what? By a nazar that was makabel his naziris atartika, because it says over here that he was makabel naziris for 100 days, and then what happened? The nitma, then the tumah took place. It wasn't tameh before; it took place now. Tiyufta the ula tiyufta. Ula is blown out of the water. Good. Baruch Hashem. Says the Gemara Vayt. These 2 days, these 2 days, Kidar Minon, that you said according to Rabbi Eliezer that the nazar has to count b'taira to go ahead and recite his naziris. The nafik chad umaskilin tarin doesn't mean the first day is gone and is beginning the second day. Or dilma the nafik trey, maybe you need 2 complete days umaskilin tlosa, and you need what? A 3rd day. And we have a biyodei, Abai didn't know. So Asa Rappa became Shaila LaRava. Yes, Rava. Amalei Rava said. Now it says the Hayomim Harishonim Yiplu. It says Yomim Rishonim Yiplu. Now Yiplu, if it were Yiplu means what? Mashma, any bit, even in the fila, guys. Once the day is nafal, the day comes in. Mashma, you don't need a complete day. Okay, you don't need a complete day. And then it says Vitzich l'michtav Yomim, Vitzich l'michtav Yiplu. So in other words, Rav is saying it's going to be on day 2, guys. Yiplu, as long as it's, in other words, from the word Yiplu, it means just as it falls, you don't need a complete day. And he's Paishat to Shaila, it's day 1 into 2 rather than 2 into 3. Now it says 2 things. It says Yiplu and it says Yomim. Vitzich michtav Yomim, Vitzich michtav Yiplu. Dikas Rachmana Yomim, V'lekas of Yiplu, Havamina, Adinafik Torin, V'ali Tlasa. If it didn't say Yiplu, it said Yomim, I would think I need 2 complete days. Kasarachmana Yiplu, therefore the Torah says Yiplu, mashma even a little bit. Because of Yiplu, because of Yomim, Havamina Filu Chad. I'd say, it does say Yomim, I'd say Yiplu means even 1 day. So Kasarachmanim Yomim, it's even what? It's even a half a day. You only need 2 days, even 1 day. Okay, we'll hold the Mishnah to tomorrow morning. Bez Hashem, we'll see you in the morning. Everyone, a ketavach from all parts.